Welcome, everyone. This afternoon, I'm going to be talking with a good colleague and friend of mine, Moray McLaren, like me, a former lawyer. He's the founder of Lexington Consultants, and I'm aware of his work. We first actually met. He was teaching at IE Business School in Madrid, and I'm aware of his work traveling all around the world. I don't think I know anybody who travels more than Moray. And particularly through his work with the International Bar Association. So one of the things I wanted to start with in this discussion around leadership was to say, as somebody who goes into pretty much every country in the world working with law firm leadership, do you see cultural differences? Are there different approaches? Are there things you need to take into account in different countries?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to be here, Kevin. It's great to talk to you again. How bizarre to spend so much time without traveling. I know you yourself have been living on planes for the last 10 years. So I think this is week 12 without being on a plane. So very curious times for us. Yes, so as you know well, my work over the last 20 years has really focused on what we call frontier markets. And I would say I am always more surprised by the similarities I see in leadership than actually the differences that I see. And when we talk about culture, I always imagine this as the culture for us is the fish swimming in the sea, and it's actually the culture that we have that we don't understand, that we absorb. And I would say that I'm more surprised by the similarities, and it's probably due to the practice that I have. Very similarly to you, I work within professional services, and the majority of those are law firms. So I have a methodology I use, and we have a 2x2, which talks about how long has a law firm been, how many years has the business been developing, and also how many people are there in the organization. And I'd be tempted to say there's more similarity within law firm types globally than anything to do with cultural differences. If I was talking to you in a 20 lawyer, 20 partner, founder-led law firm, the challenges of your type of law firm globally would be very similar. Once you get to 100 partners, you've got more of a centralized authority decision-making, you've got your practice areas set up, you will have a very different set of challenges. And remind me, when you were at Evershed, how many partners were you when at the stage you left?
About 340 partners.
Okay, so we can sort of imagine that a 340 partner firm globally, wherever you are geographically, would have some of the same challenges. And it's very unusual. We do tend to focus on culture, religion, where people were born and brought up. But clearly when we look at lawyers, there's a certain type of person who would be attracted to being a lawyer. And also because lawyers are organized in very, very specific ways. And you will know as well as me, if you want to be the type of organization delivering work to global clients, you have to pretty much deliver that in a very uniform way. So I'm always surprised by the similarities, Kevin, more than the differences that I see.
Yes, it's interesting. So you're seeing the same structures and same approach, I suppose, to deliver the same type of service. You've spent so much time with these leadership teams. What leadership traits do you see that you think are the most essential, the ones you admire, really?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm almost wondering whether we take how we'd answer this question, throw it out the window, and we can talk about COVID and what impact there is on COVID, no? Because as you know, I work within strategy and organizational design more than I do with leadership. But of course, they're both two sides of the same coin. You don't implement the strategy without having the leadership skills. Again, I think we come back to the peculiarities of the professional services firms. The starting point, of course, is if you're working in a partnership model, as you know very well, then every partner is an owner of the business. It's not like running Microsoft or Apple, where you have the line authority to tell people what to do. So, of course, it's got to be consensus-based at heart. And the second aspect for me within legal services is we're talking about a profession. And the traditional view of the profession, although we can talk about how and why this is changing, is that the organization you're in the aim of the organization you're in is to really help you develop your career and be autonomous in your practice. So I would say 10 years ago, 20 years ago, the traits would have been around how to make decisions, manage priorities, a lot about planning and a lot about implementation. But if we come up to date, the issues have really been more about the bigger issue, as you know, within legal services, has been about authenticity. And I think today, talking as we are within this current crisis, we're all trying to work our way through it. I'm talking with clients today about leadership style, which is much more, we could say, human, and we could even say empathetic. And at the heart of the humanity and the empathy is a word that the word is trust. So there's been a moving from the sort of the hard set of traits to the soft traits. And then if we're talking about empathy with lawyers, you will know better than I do that this is not anything that's typically been on the radar. You know, presumably you were a good young lawyer within your firm and you got promoted based on being a good technical lawyer, not because of the relationship you had with the people that you were there. There's a story I like to tell, which is I studied an MBA in law firm management 25 years ago. One of the lawyers from London, he was leading the corporate team of his law firm. He was a year ahead of me. He said, what was interesting about studying an MBA, it tells you what you need to do within your law firm once you get back to the office, but it doesn't give you any of the skills required as a human being, sort of how to achieve that. And you were kind enough to teach on the lawyers management program we ran here for IE. And I remember I started off the week with talking about the world is changing, legal services are changing, how are you going to position yourself to deal with those changes? And by the end of the day, we had a group of managing partners that were sitting making lists about what they had to do and what they personally felt they had to do to implement some of that change. And I used to have a good joke with them at the end of day one, which is, look guys, there's only 24 hours in the day. You're currently working maybe 18 hours or 20 hours a day. If you want to actually implement and make real any of these things, you're not going to be able to do this yourself. So the leadership challenge within legal services is, how are you going to encourage other people and how are you going to work through your teams of people to achieve that? And as you know, as well as I do, that is something that doesn't come automatically within the organizations that we work with.
Yes, I think you're absolutely the kernel of it there. It is motivating others to work with you. And one of the tells I used to see is that because we tended to get to these roles by managing a piece of work for the client and then managing a team and even managing a practice group, the risk is, you know, I used to hear people say, I need these partners to be accountable. Well, accountable is a management word, and leadership is, as you say, actually it's about inspiring people, creating a vision, motivating them to want to follow you. And I think that's one of the big lessons I got. And I used to see this on your program as well, that you would see people come in and realize it was the kind of what got you here won't get you there moment.
Exactly. It's a huge eureka moment, and I think you're saying it very clearly. Because of the nature of professional services, there isn't clarity about the people imagine that management is leadership. There is a focus on management, and we do tend to put that leadership apart. But I mean, if I was to say what's the one trait, I mean, I'm a great believer in back to basics. And you and I have both sat with law firms at retreats. We've helped them on the strategy. They have to implement it. You ask the partners, do you agree with this? Are you going to do this? And they will all nod and say, yes, I will do this. I agree to. You're smiling already. You know where I'm going with this, Kevin, don't you? You come back a year later, and what have you done? How has it happened? So there is this real challenge between what people say they will do and actually what will they do. So for me, the trait is, I have one law firm I've been working with 8 years, and you start off with the strategy bit, you then get to the behaviours bit. What behaviours do you need to be to implement this? You talk about remuneration and behaviours. Then you get to accountability. And if you're not clear about what you're trying to achieve in your role in it, how can you ever be accountable? But the creme de la creme, the red line through all of this for me is really the purpose. And unless what you're trying to achieve with an organization, unless it's aligned to what the individual aspirations of your partners are, and as a result what they require from the firm, I'm getting pretty used to lawyers around the world sitting and saying, yes, we agree to this, but actually going away and doing something else. So I don't know if any of that's similar to you and your own experiences.
Yeah, so I suppose it's a great leader who inspires you to actually want to do these things, and if you're going to find the time to do them. Because the other thing is that we've both seen is that the life of a professional just becomes increasingly pressured, and they get time poor. I think that's been the worrying thing. I think that's why maybe there's an inflection point now. As you've gone around, what would you say then? Would you say is the most overrated quality here? Then, what are the things you don't admire in leadership?
Yeah,
without naming names.
No, we'll come to that, because I mean, you've given me notice in advance. You're going to ask me who my most admired leader is, and I think that's very, very important. The trade is getting the job done, but the question is how to do that. And the most powerful thing that I see is the ability of leaders to actually there's a journey. We all view the world through our own lens. And unfortunately, we don't understand our own behaviours, and we don't understand the way we interact with people. So the journey for me is actually how we understand ourselves better. And you know all the psychometric testing around that we do with organisations, we do it with Muller and other organisations. First thing is understanding my own, you could call it cognitive bias, my own strengths and weaknesses, and how I view the world. Secondly, it's who are the people I have in my team. What is their perspective? And the third bit, I think this is the most difficult bit within professional services, is how do I adapt in order to get this group of people to where I want to get them to go to? So I think that for me, the adaptation bit is the key. But to cycle back to your question, I would think 10 or 20 years ago, we thought about a strong leader being someone that can make a decision, someone that can be decisive. And the challenge around that particular trait is it's the challenge of putting myself, and we can also almost say putting my own ego at the center of an organization. And in so many organizations I've been working, it's part of the challenge is how to get the individuals, often the leadership team, to take themselves away from the equation to allow the individuals and the organization to succeed. And listen to the news today. I know you're based in London, and you have a certain government advisor who's become the big story here. It's amazing how maybe this goes back to the personality types that you and I do tests with partners on. Maybe it's a certain type of personality will put themselves and their own ego at the center of everything. And I don't know what your views. Who did you select as your most admired leader? With apologies, I haven't seen the recording.
Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, because I just think she's given such inspirational speeches where it is not about her, it really is about the common good. And I think you also focused on something I used to see whenever we were running programs, and something I benefited from hugely was this idea of understanding yourself and your personality. And if people watching this have not actually been through a Myers-Briggs or type coach or TRACOM or DISC, I mean, in a sense, I'd say any of these professional tests, I think that was something where as a light went on for me, and I know we used to laugh about our different traits, is that we are wired in different ways. We do see the world differently, and I think you're right to link that into leadership, and certain traits will make you behave as a leader in certain ways.
Yeah, totally. So I used to think wrongly that the aim of understanding a trait was to put together a team which would balance each other. I now realize that it's actually more difficult than that. It's about, as a leader, we have to be able to cover all of those traits, and we have to be able to cover a wide range of responsibilities. So the personality trait for me is, where are we most comfortable in our personality? What are the bits that we enjoy bringing to the office. But the other bit is, what are the bits that we have to work on, and what are the bits that we need support from others in order to achieve that? But to go back to your point about the Prime Minister of New Zealand, I struggle sometimes to see good leaders around the world, and one of the models I use often with partnership groups is what I call the circle of trust. And I have to laugh when I say circle of trust, because there's a fantastic movie with Robert De Niro and Ben Stiller where they joke continually about the circle of trust. But the circle of trust for me is, and it's 4 elements. So if it's not 4 elements, Kevin, as you know, I won't remember it. The first one is, does the person have competence? And when we talk about professional services, it means, do they have the good technical skills? It should mean more, do they have the leadership skills? But it's really talking about the technical skills that make someone believable and competent as a leader. Now, I don't know what the key success factors or if we were to draft a balanced scorecard for a prime minister, it's very hard to know what that competence would be, except, curiously enough, at the moment, as you know, I'm in Spain, our KPI for leaders at the moment is based around how many people have caught the coronavirus, and last night, how many people have died of that. So oddly enough, we do have a very clear KPI by which we're judging our leaders at the moment, but that's very unusual. The second one is really about how leaders make a connection with people. And as I said, I think this is becoming increasingly important. And the word I'm currently very aware of is empathy. Some of those populist leaders, and I think you have one in your country at the moment, and we have others around the world, they're not very empathetic. And I think this goes back to the personal ego and the personal drive. These people are driven to be leaders, but at the moment they're not often the best leaders. And I see people that are very short and they lack empathy. And it's as simple as ask before you tell, and as simple about take your people with you and be seen as developing something with them. The third one is really about honesty, and sometimes we see leaders saying one thing one day and doing something the next day. So there's obviously sort of a lack of consistency for those people. And you know, if we were to put at the center of that, it's really, for me at the moment, this humility bit. And I'd be even tempted to say the leadership style that I am admiring at the moment, the most amongst the businesses I'm working with, is really about as simple as we are all in this together.
Mm.
It's not about me, it's not about you, it's not about a government advisor in England, it's not about the president, it's about we're all in this together. And so when this whole COVID thing started, I was actually working in doing a workshop in Copenhagen. I had to rush to the airport because the country was closing down and they were about to stop transport, and I was worried about would I be able to get out. And I saw that evening on Danish television, I didn't see one person presenting the way forward for their country at the same time. I didn't even see one government. They've been able to get an agreement amongst all of the political leaders in Denmark to what they as a group wanted to do. Right. So what a moment in history. What would it take for a leader at that moment in history not to say, this is my moment to stand up, this is my Churchill moment, but this isn't about me as a leader, this is about all of us, we're all in this together, and as a group of leaders, we've actually worked out a way forward, because it takes out the political heat that we're seeing in many other countries around the world. So I was immensely impressed by that.
Yes, I think it's a sign of somebody sensing and realizing it's a time for quite a democratic style of leadership and an inclusive style, and tapping into that, as you said, Moray. You know, the empathy is the type of thing that actually enables you to spot that. Now, I know that at the moment we probably wouldn't have difficulty thinking of leaders that we do not admire, but we're going to be non-political and not going to name any names. But do you have somebody that you would say you admire as a leader?
Well, curiously, I listen to the BBC sometimes, and there was Tony Blair was talking. First time I've heard him on the radio for many years. And to refer back to the circle of trust, I thought that he was someone that was talking in a very honest and open way. So I never thought that I would have heard myself say that. I mean, you go back to the early 80s, we were very critical at the time of a very strong leader in the UK called Margaret Thatcher. But she does fit as someone, in my mind, who was actually very good at getting the job done. So I think we have to be very aware that, to go back to this point about our own strengths and weaknesses, to go back to the comment about personality types, different situations require different leaders. And we have to be able to adapt to what's required. At the moment, I think a Margaret Thatcher type personality would be totally disastrous to put herself at the centre of this issue. And you do see some of these popular leaders putting themselves at the centre of the challenge. But
that's interesting. Yeah,
I'm struggling to find one leader that would fit that bill. Can I not get off with the Danish solution, having a group?
Well, actually, yeah, you're saying it's not about the leader; it's about leadership. I think that's a lovely point on which to finish. Really, it's not about somebody who stands up and is glowing and the model of a leader, but actually recognizing there's a moment for leadership as a team there that seem to have worked very well. So I suggest that we end it on that brilliant insight, and I'm gonna end now, and then you will be sat in my chair next week to lead the discussion from the Moray Institute on that next occasion. And thank you, Murray.
It's been a pleasure, Kevin. Thank you very much as always. I look forward to meeting you in person at some stage when we can go back to travelling.
Yeah, thanks.